Okay. Hi.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. Let's get reacquainted for anybody that doesn't know you or know what you're doing as far as professionally. Why don't we start with introducing yourself, telling us what you do?
Sure. I am Dr. Ann Ridley. I am a clinical sexologist. I have a doctorate in human sexuality and a master's in counseling. I have been a psychotherapist for 21 years now. And in Santa Fe, I have also, in addition to my private practice where I do sex therapy with people, I also have an erotic pleasure boutique and lingerie
Yeah.
store. Yeah.
Yeah. That's great. How's that going? You're about to open a new one, right?
Great. I am moving to a bigger location, which is wonderful. A little bit of a brand change. The name is going to be the same. The name of my shop is Modern Aphrodite.
Hmm.
Uh, and we're going to expand a little bit more to lingerie. Santa Fe really needs some lingerie. We'll still have some pleasure toys and that kind of thing. It's a luxury boutique, so it's really high end, beautiful items, candles, oils, all kinds of erotic goody things for
Yeah.
individuals and couples.
Yeah. Did you have a
Yeah,
super busy year as far as COVID and all that
yeah.
stuff?
I have an online store, modernaphrodite.com.
Yeah.
And I would say uh, like the second quarter probably of last year was the busiest that my online store has ever been. A lot of people thought, what is going to happen when we're in close quarters with our partner
Hmm.
or without a partner. And we definitely saw that in the sex toy world. There was
That's good.
a boom for sure in erotic toys. And on the other side of that, so now that we are, open, although it looks like there's some changes happening there too, right?
Yeah.
Uh, there's a lot of people wanting counseling now, relationship issues, sexuality concerns. We saw a lot of people breaking up through the pandemic, some people solidifying and deepening their relationships, but whatever was underlying the surface definitely came to the top.
Yeah.
And my therapeutic business is busier than it's ever been, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, what are you seeing the most of? Is there like a common ground of like what looks like everybody's sort of going through this one thing, or is it across the board?
I would say, in terms of sexuality, I would say there's more exploration at this moment. It feels like a lot of people are wanting to maybe expand their erotic language, meaning the play that they have with themselves, with others. Um, it's interesting to see what's going to happen given the place where we are in history. Are we going to have a sexual revolution? What's really going to happen post pandemic? And I think what I am seeing is a lot of people wanting to live more authentically, feeling like they saw the places where maybe they were hiding in their relationships, or not fully expressing their sexual desires and that kind of thing. And the pandemic put a light on that, of really the spaces in which we could grow, but also in the spaces in which we were hiding. And I
Yeah.
think that there's a lot of people that are wanting to integrate the truth of who they are into the face that they show the world
Yeah.
more and live a really purposeful, authentic life. And that includes sensuality and sexuality also.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I'm sure that that expands past sexuality. Like people are also doing that in careers and um,
Yes.
friendships, relationships, sexual and platonic. It seems like there's a big movement. Use the word.
Absolutely. And with that, um, the grief, there's a lot of grief because there's been a lot of change, whether it's been leaving jobs, whether it's been losing people that we love or relationships ending. People are really collectively in a time of transformation. And with that growth, of course, there is loss and grief also, from the past and the way that things were before, and seeing that things are not going to be the same moving forward, really, for anyone. We are all changed. And hopefully, so many of us are going to change for the better and really enjoy our lives in a new way.
Yeah, that'd be great. I
Oh,
mean, I'm sure everybody would agree with that.
yeah.
That's awesome. I had um, kind of arranged this ask a sex therapist because I knew we were talking about like coming back on, and if if those of you that are listening haven't checked out our last episode, do that. Anne's been on before, and do you mind if I call you Anne? We've never formally.
Please.
How should I address you, Doc?
I mean, a lot of people call me Doc, actually. A
Yeah.
lot of people call me Dr. Ann or Dr. Love. I get Dr. Love a lot. It's really, I'm not super attached to the doctor. It's not an ego driven thing for me at all. So whatever you want to call me is still
Yeah, I have addressed a doctor before as like Fred, and he's like, I didn't go to medical school for X amount of years to be called Fred, and I was like, oh, I'm sorry, Doctor So and So.
okay.
Yeah,
Noted.
yeah, yeah. So I'm very like aware of maybe I should just ask what's going on. Okay, cool. Well, yeah, I digress. We have recorded an episode in the past, so if you haven't checked that out, go back and check that out. But I thought for fun, I would have people write in and ask some questions. Are you okay with taking like some random questions?
Absolutely.
Cool.
Absolutely.
And fun little tidbit. I wrote a song for this segment too. So if you're ready for it,
Oh,
we're gonna get into that. You ready?
awesome. Yeah.
Let's ask a sex therapist advice that we must enlist. Can I put it in your dairy therapist? Let's ask a sex therapist. Let's ask a sex therapist advice that we must enlist. Can I put it in your dairy therapist? Let's ask a sex therapist.
That's really it.
Let's ask a sex therapist.
I love it. I think that should be in all my background music everywhere I go.
It's all yours. Anyways,
Yeah.
it's really just a couple of sentences that rhymes with therapist. Dairy therapist? It's very vaudeville. It's very.
Pretty close, right?
I like meshing the old with the new. I
Yeah.
don't know if in the prohibition days they were like, "Can I put it in your dairy therapist?" But
I love
all right, cool. Let's see what we got here. I only have a couple of questions, but let's see. Let's start with Let's start with this one. I had to look this up, so let me know if you're in the know or not. It's it feels like my relationship is heading for a lesbian bed death. And I don't are you familiar?
yes.
It's
Yeah.
Would you like to
So
expand on it?
lesbian bed death, I'm gonna say that this term originated in the 90s. Now I may be wrong. I also may say, anyways, I won't quote who I thought said it because I'm not actually accurate about it. So
Okay.
lesbian bed death, basically that means loss of physical intimacy, loss of sexual connection, um, often in the lesbian community. Okay, obviously this is where this originated. So I guess where I would go with that is there enough polarity to keep the sexual charge? Okay. Or is there so much similarity that the eroticism runs cold? Okay. I'll put it that way. That's the best way that I could explain it.
That's
Given, right? Like over the
Yeah,
years, honestly, I think that as we expand to a more non-binary sort of mindset, hopefully, this idea of identification around sexuality. You know, our terms are broadening. So I don't want to limit in the way that I say lesbian bed death, because I think that honestly, that could happen with a lot of couples where maybe, because even in lesbian couples, there's masculine and feminine, right? In every person, there's masculine and feminine within all of us. And we want to open that up to not be so binary. But for explanation purposes, I think that it's important to say when you have two people in their feminine, we'll say, the erotic charge is not as great as when someone is in their masculine and someone is in their feminine. We need that polarity. Now, that's David Data's work originally, and a lot of people expand on the masculine feminine dynamics. But in terms of arousal and desire, it is important that there is enough space for the air of the fire. So often when there's so much similarity and two people are in their feminine, the charge isn't there, hence bed death.
Right.
So that's
Yeah.
what that means. It
Okay.
means, yeah, the sexual connection, the sexuality between two people, the eroticism, the desire. If that
And
is
that,
not happening, that's a bed death term.
yeah.
Yeah,
And that's, she even goes on to say, you know, in the question, I'll just go ahead and read the whole thing.
please.
Um, uh, that sort of like, I was like, okay, yeah, that's what I thought it was. And also it's sort of in the name, but it feels like my relationship is headed for lesbian bed death. We're having less and less sex the longer the relationship lasts. I've been with my girlfriend now for 5.5 years, and I would like to regain the spark that we once had when we first started dating. Thanks, Shelby from Raleigh, North Carolina.
Oh, hi, Shelby. Thank you. I appreciate your question. Um, I had a call-in radio show for 4 years, so we would often get these on-the-fly questions, right? So my hi, Shelby is thinking she's here. Um, but thank you, Shelby, for the question. So often we hear, and a lot of people say, you've probably said it, many people listening, I want to reignite the spark. And actually, I want to think about that differently, because it's not necessarily to gain what we had in the past, it's to create something totally new, actually, because newness, spontaneity is really such an important part of desire and arousal. And what happens in long term relationships is we anticipate our partner's move before they do it, whether it's, you know, out and about grocery store, right? We know what they're going to buy, or if it's in during sex, we know what their moves are, right? We know the pattern of how our dance together goes. So as time goes on, of course, there isn't that question of what's going to happen here that is in new relationships. And that's often why in when sex is brand new and a new dynamic, there's a lot of it, right? Because you're learning each other and exploring, and there's this curiosity, and it's different and it's fresh, and you don't know each other's bodies yet. And people want to hold on to that. Of course we do. Of course we
Yeah.
do, right? That is the nature of eroticism. And keeping our desire high and fresh. So what I would say, instead of trying to recapture the old spark, is have a new spark, something that is different, something that your partner does not anticipate. With this comes consent, right? We want to know, what might you be into that we have not done? What would you like? What have you fantasized about? Would you ever? These kinds of questions are really important to give us a roadmap. You also don't want to totally surprise your partner in a way that they are not expecting and not okay with, because then that can create a trust issue, right? So I have some things that I do with people, even who've been in relationships for a long time, and you can find these online. One of them is a yes, no, maybe checklist. So it's a list of like 30 things, and you fill it out. Yes, I would be into this. No, I would not. Or maybe I would be willing to try this. And you each fill it out and give it to the other person. And then you start planning, right? It takes effort, but effort is attractive. If your partner comes home with some new piece of lingerie, they come to that effort, that is attractive. That alone is exciting, right? Is something different. And it's initiative. We often wait for our partner to initiate. It's really that we should be the one initiating if we're waiting on, because then you get in this resentful dynamic, and that's not cool either. So having enough space in newness creates more fire. If you're such good friends and you know everything about each other, there's no mystery. And so, yes, that's when the bed death happens, even in hetero relationships, right? In any relationship, not just lesbian. Um, so it's so important to do something different, go to a new place. That's why people on vacation, because sometimes have better sex, the environment is different. It's all fresh. We need fresh eyes when we approach sexuality with our long-term partner.
Yeah,
So I'm
that's
happy to
great.
help on more questions like that too. You can always contact me through my website or work with me individually on how to do those kinds of things. Given my shop online too, I have plenty of suggestions on how to do that.
That's great. I was
Yeah.
having a conversation with a coworker. It's really funny how primal we are. It bleeds out, it like bleeds into and out of sex. We were having a conversation about memory, and
Mm.
he was telling me that he could remember watching these like silly TV shows and theme songs like it was yesterday, but he'll like meet a person, forget their name, forget like what department they're in, blah blah blah. Um, and we had a conversation about mixing it up. Like if you were to go home, watch your favorite TV show, eat your normal meal that you always eat, and do that for 7 days in a row, or if you're to go to some mundane place like, I don't know, Laredo, Texas, and have a cheeseburger and come back, like, what are you going to remember more? Is it going to be,
Yeah.
is it going to be your normal everyday meal while you're watching reruns of Bewitched or whatever your forte is? Um, I'm really dating
Loves that
myself.
show.
Yeah. But yeah, he was like, I Darren, Samantha, like I could tell you their names. But yeah, so that just kind of, it was funny to hear that from a different perspective of don't harp on the old. Like don't just keep watching Bewitched and eating your Monday or Tuesday taco day or whatever. Like switch it up and go to, I don't know, try a new show, try a new
So,
activity, eat
right.
outside. Yeah,
Right.
eat on your
Well,
patio.
it is interesting if we look at fantasy, right? If you look at your sexual history and your sexual experiences, most people have a collection of things that really imprinted on them, right? So it's like, why did that TV show imprint so deeply? Why did that sexual experience imprint so deeply? What was it about that? And often people judge or shame themselves for bringing past fantasy with other people into their current sexuality and their current sexual experience with the different partner. But actually, it's very telling of your erotic language and what is so exciting for you. So maybe if your partner can't handle, hearing your past awesome sexual experiences, because some can't, some do not want to know that, and you've got to respect that boundary. But what you could do is say, what are those things that turned me on so much? And how can I bring that into now? Not make it about the other person from the past, but make it about you and what was so hot for you in those experiences, and infuse that into the now of
Yeah,
what's happening. It's so
yeah,
important. Our sexual history and our fantasy is such a beautiful insight to our love languages, really, and how we can communicate deeper with our partner and bring the fullness of who we are into our sex life.
yeah. That's a beautiful thing. Do you want to do another question?
Sure.
All right. Let's see. This one comes from Kelly in Gaffers, Massachusetts. Kelly says, my fiance is too polite whenever he goes down on me. Although I appreciate his effort, I want him to get nasty with me. How do I ask him without offending him?
Mhm. Okay, great question. This kind of question. And it's also helpful for the men out there to hear this. I would say I have a lot of women who I see either in my practice or who come in and talk to me in the store that they enjoy cunnilingus, but often the men are too soft with it. And everyone has a different threshold, right? Every woman is going to like pleasure in a different way. There's going to be, maybe the clitoris is more sensitive for some than for others. Maybe they don't like to be maybe penetrated with a finger during oral and that kind of thing. But often women want to feel like their partner, and it's not just male partners, even female partners, but that their partner is really loving it.
Yeah.
Okay. And those people with penises want to feel like whoever is giving them oral is really loving it. That is what is so hot, right? Is like, get into it like it's your last meal, like it's the most delicious thing you've ever tasted in your life. And it's not for everyone, not everyone loves giving head. Not everyone loves that. But for the receiver, we do like to feel that our partner really enjoys it, or else don't do it.
Mhm.
Like don't do it. We'll find something else to get turned on by. So dealing, because this was her specific question, I would say dealing with the male ego around sex, we have to be as women or sexual partners, um, tactful in our delivery. Okay, so because I work with a lot of men too, and often when women will say, when there's a hetero couple, when women will say, I am not getting this turned on as I want to get turned on. I want to feel more connected with you. I want to, because women on average take a lot longer to orgasm than men. The average is 20 minutes, okay, for a woman. That can include foreplay. So a lot of times a female body needs more time to get aroused, right? That 20-minute time. Often their male partner will say, give me the technique to get there, because men are thinkers, okay? They want a task and they want to know the directions on how to complete the task. That's just how the male brain works. So as women, we need to be mindful of that and give technique and not just say, oh, I need to feel through it, because women are the feelers, right? Generally speaking. And so we want to feel that emotional connection too. So what I would say is always, whether it's a male or female partner, give a positive stroke first before you give feedback that you're nervous about giving. So say, I really love it when you do this. It feels so good when you do X, Y, and Z. I just love that. I'd love more of that. And this part, not so much. That doesn't really do it for me. But this part, right? Like keep going back to the positive thing. We all can go through performance anxiety, right? Men, women, other, whatever. Everyone can experience some anxiety in going into an erotic situation. And that can be compounded when there's been negative feedback,
Sure.
because then your partner tends to be more in their head. And what we want to do is get more in our bodies and less in our head during sex. So again, positive stroke, feedback, and not even negative, like you're terrible at that. Like, don't say that. But because some people do, honestly, unfortunately, sometimes in relationships, the digs happen in those worst kind of ways. But to be more like, I like it when you do this, but if you could use your fingers a little more, or, I'm not that sensitive. Like you can really sort of tug and pull and suck a little stronger. And I think that I would really enjoy that. That would be so hot for me, right? Like really get into it. And often her partner or male partners will be like, yeah, totally, I'm down. Let's go for this, right? And then you both have a different experience.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Feedback is
great.
feedback is one of the common questions that I get. How do I talk to my partner about what I want during sex, and specifically what I do not want during sex?
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
it reminds me, it was funny. You mentioned like you want to act like this is the most the tastiest thing you've
Delicious.
ever had in your mouth, the most delicious. Yeah. I was listening to
Yeah.
a comic and I'm apologize for not giving credit where credit's due, but clearly not my joke. And she said it's really easy at being good at sex because you just act like you're a 4-year-old and you put like everything in your mouth, like everything goes in your mouth, like a bunch of Legos. You just pretend like private parts, toes, everything's a Lego. Like you want to
Yes,
taste it. You put it in your
everything. Absolutely. I think that that's great. When you don't know what to do, put something in your
Yeah.
mouth. That
I know.
usually is gonna work.
Yeah, I was like, that's funny and probably accurate.
Yeah,
So that's great.
I'm gonna use
Yep.
that one.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess you could probably Google it and find out who said it. But anyways, I do have time for one more?
Yeah, sure.
All right, cool. This is kind of in the same vein. This one says, "My partner likes dirty talk, but I don't feel comfortable doing that. When I think about it, I just feel silly or dumb. Any advice would be great. Thanks, Clayton from Tuscaloosa, Alabama."
Thanks, Clayton. I love all these like East Coast Southern states because I'm from Tennessee. Like go, the Alabama thing. It's like, woo, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Because I think sex toys are still legal in Alabama. That's why I also say that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, yeah,
Oh,
yeah. I think so. I mean, I haven't checked lately, but I know maybe you can check for me and post that because that's pretty interesting. My
yeah.
business definitely would not fly in some of those southern states.
Yeah, I
Um,
bet.
this is a great question because dirty talk, and we're going to label it as that because that's how he used it in the question. And yet, there is something about labeling it dirty talk that makes it for some people a little harder to get into. Okay. So, what I would suggest, you'd be surprised because I did a whole show around this. If you Google dirty talk suggestions, there are shows, there are books, I mean, phrases that you can use. This also goes back to the other question of the element of surprise. If your partner is not expecting you to say something and you say it, even through text, right? So if people feel ridiculous, which a lot of people do, saying these kind of things, try it through text, try it through voice memo. It's a great way to do it, because your face isn't present. So if you're like, oh, this is so weird, I don't know how to do this, at least they can't see your face,
Mhm.
right? And then if you do it enough times, then you can be confident doing it. It's also important that it be something that turned you on, the person who's saying it. There are plenty of things that can be said, that are arousing. Some people have arousal around derogatory terms too, right? And I think that and I don't even want to say derogatory because for some people they aren't, but terms like slut, um, daddy, baby, kitten, all of these kinds of things that are often used, or like really, or cunt, even, like words that maybe have sort of a punch to them. Okay. And part of that punch is what's exciting, right? That you're taking a risk, that you're saying something that you normally might not say. It's also a great way to tell your partner what you want. Okay. So if we can go back to that question, like, how do I tell my partner what I want? Well, what if you do an erotic story? What if in the erotic story, someone is going down on their partner aggressively? Like, it's a great way to roundabout tell your partner what turns you on.
Hmm. So you're
So
saying,
yes, you want to say things that turn your partner on. But you can also align them with what's hot for you. And
yeah.
practice makes perfect. You know, when you have a partner that goes, "Oh yeah, I totally love that. That was so hot when you said that." You're going to say it more.
Hmm.
If your partner says, "Ugh, I don't like that." Okay, I won't go there again. I'll try something else, right? But I think a lot of people have a fear of rejection around this. If I really say what is my fantasy, I'm afraid I'm going to be rejected. I'm afraid I'm going to be shamed. So, because your partner likes it, it's a good idea for you to find a way that you're comfortable doing it, or
Hmm.
else they may withdraw from telling you what they like.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
really important that they don't do that also. Yeah.
To go back
And
to,
also, yeah, go ahead,
I
please.
was just gonna add a silly anecdote. It can wait. Go ahead.
The other thing I was going to say is sometimes for one partner who doesn't love dirty talk, but the other one does, it's important to ask, is this ritualistic? Like, does my partner need this to get off? Because if they need it to get off, that can be a real turn off. Like, I don't want to have to do this every single time.
Mhm.
And that is true for some people, that they need that or think they need it to have heightened arousal. And it may not even be dirty talk. Maybe some people need to hear I love you to get off. Maybe
Right.
some people need to hear, like, I'm never going to leave you. I mean, there are a lot of things that people like to hear or like to even say during sex. It's important that it's not habitual, because then that also kills the desire, right?
Right. Yeah.
So maybe you got to, it may be dirty talk all the time. Maybe you challenge yourself to do it once a week, and just let that be it. Or while they're in the shower, just say something, like, just to incorporate it more into your language spontaneously, um, and see what kind of reaction that gets.
Yeah. That's great
Yeah.
advice. I had a friend just talking about like positive, negative feedback. A friend dated this girl from Miami. So part of the culture was like when they were sexual, she would call him daddy. And he asked if she didn't do that anymore. And she asked
Yeah.
why, and he said it ended up very well, and I thought he had a pretty funny, response, and he said, "Just take the Y off, and that's how I feel." Like, "Just call me dad,
Oh, right.
that's how it makes me
Yeah.
feel, and you call me, daddy." So
Yeah.
anyways, I thought
Well,
that was
and
pretty.
these kinds of things could be on the yes, no, maybe question too. Like, do you like that? Do you like to be called baby girl? I
Mhm.
mean, some women don't like that. Some women love it. And it's not just maybe across the board. It's also, within the power dynamic with a certain person. Just because you're, into power play doesn't mean that it actually has that same kind of charge with every partner that you have.
Right,
So, the terms can change given what the person likes. And,
definitely.
and none of us want to say anything that kills our partner's arousal, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I love taking out the expectation of like, "Oh, I have to talk dirty every single time," as opposed to like, maybe I'll just incorporate it, I'll start with the dirty text and then, maybe use it once or twice a week or something like that.
Yeah.
I think that definitely takes a big amount of pressure off of.
Absolutely. And so many couples will say, our sex is so routine,
Mhm.
right? We already know, like, A to B to C to D to E, like there's a roadmap, right? And this is how we've been doing it. And sometimes that includes the talk.
Yeah, I think that happens.
And like, it's such an effort. Also, the other thing that I think is really important, and I think I thought of this maybe a year or two ago, and I've used it a lot actually, is that when you're in the heat of a moment, a lot of times someone will say, "What do you want?" Okay. and I don't know about the listeners out there, but it creates a lot of pressure.
Yes.
Not always, not
No,
always, because
I've been faced.
sometimes it's easy, right?
Sure. I've been faced with the same question. What do you want? And I'm like, well, I'm kind of having fun right now. Like,
I know,
I,
like, and the other piece is like, if you asked me before we started or after we finished, then that's great. Then
good
we can
timing.
talk about it and I'm in my head. But when I'm trying to be like deep in my sex organs right now, my head is not thinking what I want next. I
Yeah.
don't want to be thinking.
Yeah. I'm
And
very here now. I'm very Ram Dass right now. And the,
totally, right? And it's
yeah,
like, let's just move with it. And then later we can talk about a scene for next time.
sure.
Or when we're not in the moment. And I think that can be part of the dirty talk too, is like, tell me what you want. Tell me how you want it. Right. And sometimes it's okay. And sometimes it feels easy. But I would always say, like, before or after would maybe be better. And just to go with it. I think most people would say the best sex that they had was when they got lost in each other and they forgot that they had a thinking mind
Hmm.
and and their bodies were just electric
Yeah.
because they were not thinking.
Right. I'm sorry, I was grabbing a note because I didn't want to interrupt you. I also wanted to go back to, you mentioned like writing a narrative for how you want the sex to go. Just kind of going full circle and taking a few steps back. But I think it was Kelly's question about I want him to get nasty with me. And you were saying like write a narrative of how you want it to go. Would you like
Yes.
act physically
So
write it down and say,
this is a great exercise. And I mean, I think I started doing this maybe 15 years ago with someone in my personal life. And I've used it a lot recently or since for couples who are trying to find that spark anew,
mhm,
and or who maybe even have new partners and they want to have some foreplay during the day. So you can write an erotic story. You don't even have to be the main character. You can make up characters and you write a little bit, maybe through an email or whatever, text, whatever you feel is a safe mode of transportation. And then you send it to your partner and then they write back. Okay.
cool.
So a lot of times it's like you've got these characters that you've created, and obviously one of them is but you can give them different names or whatever. And you create some erotic story for them. And it could be romantic, even. It could be anything, really. And it's a beautiful way to tell your partner without telling them what you like, what is hot for you.
Right.
It just gives so much to the imagination, and it creates so much arousal and desire that builds when you're not in the same room with each other.
Right. Yeah.
It's really quite amazing, and some people feel ridiculous starting it, but often a lot of people get into it and, like, really into it. The other thing that you could do is read something that you found erotic to your partner. If you don't wanna write something, read it aloud. I think that reading is a beautiful part of foreplay,
Yeah.
whether it's poems or erotica or anything. Can be just words can be so charged like that
Yeah.
and have such information.
Yeah. Isn't that funny how that works? Like just a single word is like, whoa, like now I'm really turned on. You said
Right.
the one thing. Yeah. Yeah. That's great.
Yeah.
I'm glad you
Yeah.
mentioned email too, because I was going to be like, where do I find a blank card around here? Uh,
Right. Right. Well, and if you have a private email, or create one. I mean, I've
mhm,
even had couples create like some random Gmail that they only have access to, and that they can send back these stories to each other. It's awesome. It's incredible to receive them too. Incredible. So fun. You open it when you can, right? In a space where you feel safe to be aroused by reading something. And then you know what is so great for your partner that
Yeah.
maybe they were afraid to tell you.
Yeah, in a world of, it's almost like getting personal mail and the snail mail, it's like, oh cool, I got a postcard from so and so. It's like in a world of work emails, it's really cool to get a
Yeah,
hot, you
yeah,
know.
I
That's
know, like
great.
an old school AOL address
Uh-huh.
or something.
Oh, it's sent to my Hotmail address. Oh my gosh,
Yeah,
this is gonna be good. Yeah.
there we go.
Oh my gosh. And this has been great. Is there anything before I cut you loose that do you want to give, like a PSA or anything coming up? I'll
Totally.
certainly include your website and links
Yeah,
to IG and everything so people can get a hold of you in the show
absolutely.
notes of this episode.
That would be awesome. I mean, a lot of people reach out to me through social media, not just through my online store or whatever. That's absolutely fine. If you want to know how to work with me, what that would look like, I do a lot of virtual sessions, obviously. I think sometimes, even with couples, even if you're in different places, it can be super beneficial to do Zoom because you see each other's faces and I see your response to each other, and it can be really great. A lot of people are more comfortable doing sex kinds of therapy around intimacy concerns, arousal issues. They're more comfortable doing that virtually also, and that's totally fine. I do see people locally in Santa Fe, in my office, and I have a little bit of a waiting list, but not too long. So if someone's interested, I would totally suggest filling out a short questionnaire on my website, which is annridley.com. So you can also get there through the shop page, which is modernaphrodite.com. There's also a space to do that through my IG, which is modern_Aphrodite. Um, Lots of great things coming up. I'm so excited about my new move to a bigger space, a fresh building, a little bit of revamp, and now that we can gather, a group in person. My erotic book club for women is going to be up and running again. It's not
Cool.
erotica, but it's books that we read around pleasure, and it's so fun. That also can be found through my IG or website of how to sign up for that. We do also have virtual meetings if you can't make it in store, but still want to read these books along with a group of women and have a dialogue. We'd love to have you. There are going to be workshops in the new space, which is great because it's going to be bigger. We're going to be able to have workshops. I'd really love to have a shibari workshop, which is rope time for those of you who don't know. Maybe some demonstration to have people come in. And it's always really important for me that the container feels really safe. So before anyone were to sign up for a workshop, I will be doing interviews and that kind of thing just to make sure that we have a space that feels really good and safe for everyone. So you can be assured of that. Please join me in the store. Come by and shop. Come by and ask questions. Come by and check it out. Um, I am in the store almost every day. So it's a very comfortable space. There is nothing that looks like a body part. So you don't need to feel overwhelmed or compare yourself to anything. Everyone is beautiful and normal, however you are, and manifest. And I really want to encourage that. And if you can't come in store, shop online at
Yeah.
modernaphrodite.com. You can send me an email. I'm happy to make recommendations if you don't know where to start with toys. Happy
Are
to
you
help.
going to do a grand opening?
Yes, I
Cool.
don't know when it will be. I will keep that posted because, of course, with getting into a brand new building, we're not really sure the actual opening date because there's some logistical things we have to jump through with getting some licensure and that kind of thing. But I'm hoping it will be September, October before the weather changes, and we'll have a great time. It'll be
Yeah,
awesome.
that's
Yeah.
amazing. I'm excited for you. Yeah, we'll watch you
You'll be
closely
one
on.
of the first people you'll be one of the first people on my list for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah,
For the invite.
absolutely. Yeah, I would be
Yeah,
offended if I didn't get the
I
invite. Let's
know.
let's get
You'll be
together and
there.
get a drink sometime, catch up.
I'd love
Aw,
that. I
cool.
would love that. That'd be awesome.
Awesome. Okay, Ann. Well, I'm gonna let you loose. Thanks for doing this.
For
And stick
sure.
around
Thanks for
for the rest. Yeah. And stick around for the rest of the show.